Hey guys, welcome to the AviationPro channel. Welcome to another video. It's been a while. Now I had the honor of talking to the new sound guy of PMDG the other day, visiting the FS weekend at Lelystad, and we had a little talk about aviation, real life flying, and the new sound set that was coming with the new 777-200ER for FS 2024. And he basically asked me to give him some brutally honest feedback on the sound package. So I was supposed to send him an email where we didn't actually talk about my YouTube channel and that I have a YouTube channel, but I thought it would be nice to make a little video on the PMDG 777-200ER sounds, because I know there's quite a bit of discussion going on in forums regarding the sound set. And I'm a real-world pilot on the 777 and 787, so it's my weekly office. So I know a little bit about how it should sound. And the topic of sound is, of course, quite complex because, well, you can hear birds outside and stuff, but you can record sounds and you can kind of objectively record sounds and play them back. But the way you play them back on different systems is, of course, different for everyone. Some people have headphones, some people have speaker systems. And then there's also a lot of subjective part to it. There's people perceive sounds differently. Also, we in the cockpit, it's different every time. Sometimes you have your noise cancelling headset on, sometimes you don't. Sometimes there are people in the cockpit during cruise talking to you. There's a lot of different sounds that come into play, and the way you perceive them is a little bit different. But what I can say is that there are a few aircraft in Flight Simulator that really manage to capture that feeling of okay, now this feels like the plane that I know that I'm flying in. One big shout out to the Cows DA42. That's really a plane that I want to mention. Plane has a sound package that is truly very accurate to the real thing. And really, as soon as I flew that aircraft for the first time in the sim, it really got me back instantly to flight training, because I did my flight training on the DA42, and it's just a spot-on sound package. The whole mixing of the sounds, the engine sounds, the propellers, all the little quirks of the diamonds that make certain sounds. It was just spot on. And when an airplane add-on can capture that feeling, then it's, I think, a good sound package, regardless of all the objective measurements and recordings and things like that. It's just about a feeling. Does the triple give me that feeling? I have to be brutally honest there. It doesn't really. Yes, there are good parts to the sound package in general. I think it gives you a good feeling of the 777, but it just misses these little things that I think could use a little bit more work. So I did a members flight here on the channel, a little stream with the new aircraft, and also did some testing yesterday. So I'm just going to give some, small remarks, some additions that would be nice to make the 777 sound even more realistic, okay? Now let's just go through the process a little bit. I'm using a surround sound system, by the way, not a very expensive system, just a cheap surround sound set. So I kind of have all the cockpit sounds in the airplane around me, and then I'm using VATSIM, of course, so all the 8C goes through the headset, kind of like it's supposed to be in real life. And of course, I also have to mention PMDG is still working on this sound set. There are going to be new engine sounds. They are working on that. It's going to be coming soon. So it's still a work in progress, but there are just a few additions that I would like to add. Regarding surround sound, first of all, I did notice that there is surround sound. That's something that was really lacking in previous 777 versions. So I think also in Prepared it wasn't there. It's really nice to have a surround sound so that you can really hear the different locations of the different sounds, especially engines in the back and then more cockpit sounds in the front. So that's really nice to see that. I think in general they also put quite a bit of effort into some new sounds for buttons and things like that. So like the fuel cutoff switch, fuel control switch, I should say, and yeah, just some small items there. Now let's go a little bit through the flight process to kind of see what could be improved. So the whole startup process, I know this was quite nice. What I do sort of miss is accurate cockpit fan noises, if that makes sense. Each airplane, each cockpit sounds different, even with the engines off. Just the noise of the fans, especially when the packs get on, and you know, the 737, the standby altimeter, has a very distinctive rattling noise, for example. But the 777 and the 787 also sound different. You know, the sounds of the vents and the airs circulating through the cockpit sounds a little bit different everywhere. So I think those sounds could use a little bit more depth and realism to make it feel more like that specific airplane. Okay. Also in the cabin, I don't really care about cabin sounds, but I think they can do an even better job there. But I'm sure with the engine sounds that are coming, it will be even better. But having more accurate fan noises would be nice. Now the whole startup process is fine. The 777, I can only vouch for the General Electric 90 engines, by the way, but you know, it has quite a deep rumbling sounds as you start the engines, and together with the switches sounds, it is very nice. The startup process is overall very good. And then as you start the taxi as well. So you do notice on airplanes like this, you know, with automatic pack configuration, the packs and the fan noises of that going up and down a little bit. And that is also accurate. I'm just not sure if the timing of those packs going up and down every time is as accurate as in real life, but I've never really paid too much attention to that. I kind of have to make maybe a recording someday of when the the fans go up and down during the engine start process. But you know, the fans going down as you turn on, for example, the hydraulic pumps, that is actually very realistic, so that's correctly modeled. Now, as for the takeoff, I think one of the more important aspects, there are some quite specific 777 characteristic sounds. So I'll let you listen to a recording of a real 777 takeoff from a record from the cockpit, from the observer seat, and kind of point out some things. One thing that the 777 thrust levers are quite characteristic for is, you know, as you move them about the idle position, there's a little like squeaky noise, like ee. It's very hard to replicate, but it has this squeaky noise around idle. So once the thrust levers are moved up a little bit to set takeoff thrust, you can definitely hear that. Once you hit toga and the auto throttle kicks in, you can really hear the auto throttle servos also kicking in with the throttle. You will notice that in the recording. I think I heard that during some takeoff runs, but during others not, or maybe just need the volume used to be a little bit adjusted, because it's a bit louder sound than it is right now during the takeoffs that I did in the PMDG aircraft. So some little quirks with the throttle levers there. That's quite interesting. And then in general, as you set takeoff thrust on a big jet like this, the airplane and the whole cockpit has kind of a tendency to kind of like shake like this a little bit, and then once it accelerates for takeoff, it kind of settles down as it accelerates. Okay, and this shaking is quite noticeable. You know, takeoff thrust is set, and then you have this shaking, and then you hear all the doors and hatches rattle, and all the wires of headsets slamming against the window frame, and you also hear the occasional water bottle that was not secured properly fall down. And of course, in general, during the takeoff run, there's quite a bit of cockpit rattling noise, and that's kind of what I'm missing. This needs to be way louder. It's way louder in real life. And yeah, the takeoff power is nice. It's very, of course, a very strong sound. Regarding the engine sounds, I'm not going to comment too much on the engine sounds because it's still work in progress. But yeah, as you take off, it is a little bit too loud right now. It sounds very nice, but it's just a little bit too loud. What I'm hoping for is, I kind of like to compare an engine takeoff sound to like a chord that you play on a big organ in a big cathedral. Like it's a very that deep sound, with various frequencies, like with a high pitch and a low pitch. And, as it gets through your subwoofer, if you have that, it's really deep sound. And yeah, I hope with the new engine sounds that will be more in there, and that it will also be more subdued. Yes, engines are loud, but in the cockpit, as you do your takeoff, as you start to gain airspeed, it quickly kind of subsides. So It's not as loud in real life as it is right now during the takeoff roll, okay?
V1.
Thrust rev. Thrust set, 80 knots.
V1.
Rotates. Positive rates. Gear up. Gear up. And on off.
Then as you climb along, what is correctly modeled is of course the wind sounds picking up. You know, most of the sound in the cockpit is going to be sounds from winds on the windows and the fans inside the airplane from the PAC system. It just blows a lot of air into the cockpit, and that just makes a lot of noise on its own. And then you don't, especially at cruise and during the descent, you do not really hear the engines more. During descent it's fine, you barely hear the engines, it just goes to idle and you descend nicely. Then during landing, also some little things I would say, well, quite similar. Yeah, again, during approach, probably the engine sounds are a bit too loud. But during touchdown, again, we'll let you listen to a touchdown recording. The same thing, moving the throttles to idle, there's a little squeaking sound. And then as you hit the runway and the speed brakes come up, I noticed that the speed brake sound right now is quite loud. It's more like a 737 speed brake lever sound almost. In real life, on the triple, it's not that loud. It just moves back quite smoothly without making too much sound. So that needs a little looking into. And again, the rattling noise. You know, as you come down on the runway, it is a lot of rattling. Again, the aircraft shakes. You feel the nose gear hitting quite well, and then of course you roll down the runway and it settles down slowly. But it's a lot of noises at once, and it's of course you also hit runway centerline lights every now and then, which adds to that, you know, ka-ding ka-ding sound that really is there in real life. As for the engine reversers, again, same thing. Right now it's sort of a high-pitched, weird, filtered sound, which sounds a bit weird to me. In real life, it's much more of a rumble. You do not really hear the engines the same way as you hear them when you set takeoff thrust. It's more of a rumbling sound as you use the reverse thrust. Now, we do not use reverse thrust that much to its full extent, but when you do, it's more of a rumbling sound rather than a more classic engine sounds. So that really needs some work once the engine sounds are getting processed. And then, of course, you taxi in. Well, you can listen to a recording here of a landing in real life and then compare it to a landing I did yesterday in the members only live stream that I did on the channel. You can kind of see what I'm talking about.
30, 20, 10.
Speed brake up. Reversers normal. manual braking.
So yeah, and then you taxi in, and that's fine. I mean, the whole I like the way the flap handle and the switches on the airplane sound. It really adds to the dynamic. That is very nicely done, and also the engine shutdown itself, quite nice. So just some little remarks from my side regarding the sound. Now, don't let this put you off from buying it. It's a wonderful airplane. Love flying it in FS2024. The flight dynamics in FS2024 and the ground physics are just a bit better than FS2020, which makes the flying it a little bit nicer, in my opinion. And of course, well, there are some differences to the 200 versus the 300 ER. Just as a little bonus, some little differences that you can notice. Of course, the 200 ER is a smaller airplane, a little bit less wingspan, about 61 meters. And the fuselage is a bit shorter, things like that, lower takeoff, maximum takeoff and maximum landing weight. And of course it has the 3 engine variants, which the 300 ER doesn't have, but on the 200 ER you have the General Electric 90s and the Rolls-Royce and the Pratt & Whitneys. So that's different. The wing of the 200 ER is quite different from the 300 ER. The 300 ER has these raked wingtips, which makes it a bit more nicer aerodynamic wing than the 200 ER. And you definitely notice that during cruise with the 200 ER, it's much closer to the overspeed limit compared to the 300 ER in similar conditions. So, at a regular cruise speed with the 200 ER, you're much more prone to getting an overspeed when you hit turbulence or mountain waves, for example. So that's something definitely I pay attention to when I'm flying it during cruise, and when turbulence is forecasted, be ready to reduce the speed and have your hands ready at the speed brake lever at moderate or heavy turbulence, so you can adjust that accordingly. In the 300 ER, you simply have more margin to the stall speed and the overspeed limit, and it's even better in the 787. So that's something very specific for the 200 ER to look into. The 200 ER does not have a tail skid system, where the 300 ER does have that. It's connected to the gear lever. You put the gear down and the gear up. Also, the tail skid comes out, which protects the 300 ER from, a tail strike, to protect the fuselage basically during a tail strike scenario. So the 200 ER does not have that. It does not have a camera system, so you won't miss the camera button. It doesn't work in a 300 ER and FS2020, but the camera system is there to assist in the turns with the bigger 300 ER. The 200 ER, it's a bit easier to taxi because it's a bit shorter, but just some small differences as a little bonus to this video to make you aware of the 200 ER. So I hope this gives you some inputs, and don't worry too much if you are buying this product. I mean, it's a very nice airplane to fly, but I think the sound package does still need some work to really give me that feeling of I'm in the 777, because at the moment I do not completely feel that right now yet. Kind of maybe depending a bit on the stage of flight, but I'm sure it will improve over time, and it's a wonderful airplane to fly. The systems are just that accurate. It's really incredible, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of fun flying the 777 in your own flight sim flights. So that's it for now. If you want to have a bit more experience or insight in the 777, make sure you check out my latest full flight video in the 777 freighter. And of course, if you want to have even more in-depth knowledge, make sure you check out the memberships here on the channel. I do monthly live full flights on VATSIM, and I'll probably feature the 200 ER in the next couple of streams, so make sure you check that out. For now, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Cheers.